Last month I watched a 14-year-old kid with no editing experience create a video that looked better than anything I made in my first 5 years of video production. Not better by a little, better by a lot. And the thing that kept me up that night wasn't jealousy, it was realizing that every assumption I had about what skills actually matter in this industry just became obsolete. The gap between professional and amateur didn't shrink, it evaporated. And if you're still thinking about AI video tools as some future thing you'll eventually get around to learning, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you're not early anymore. You're not even on time. You're late. Welcome back to Zero Index. Let's talk about why the last 6 months changed everything, and what that actually means for anyone who creates anything with video. So here's what shifted, and I want to be honest with you about something, I almost missed it myself. Around September of last year, we hit this inflection point where AI video tools stopped being impressive demos and started being genuinely useful. And I don't mean useful in the way tech people say useful, where they mean theoretically interesting. I mean I can actually use this to make real things that real people watch useful. The catalyst was a combination of things happening at once. Runway's Gen 3 Alpha got good enough that the uncanny valley started feeling more like an uncanny crack in the sidewalk. Kling came out of China and suddenly we had competition driving quality up and prices down. Pika Labs added features that actually solved problems creators have instead of problems engineers thought we should have. And then in February, we got Sora, and whatever mental model you had about what's possible just broke. The numbers here are staggering. Runway reported that their user base tripled in 6 months. CapCut, which has AI features baked in that most people don't even realize they're using, crossed 200 million monthly active users. And here's the thing nobody talks about, the people adopting fastest aren't the tech enthusiasts. They're the pragmatists. Small business owners who need a product video but can't afford a production company. Real estate agents who want virtual staging. Teachers making educational content. The people who never cared about AI as a concept but care very much about getting something done in 2 hours instead of 2 weeks. I spent the last 3 weeks testing every major tool I could get my hands on, and I want to cut through the hype and tell you what actually works versus what's still a party trick. For generating video from text prompts, Runway Gen 3 Alpha is currently the most reliable for anything that needs to look somewhat realistic. I generated a shot of a coffee cup on a desk with morning light streaming through a window, and it took 4 attempts to get something usable, but that 4th attempt was genuinely good enough to put in a real video. A year ago, 4 attempts would have gotten me 4 different flavors of nightmare fuel. For extending existing footage or creating variations on a clip you already have, Pika has this thing where you can take a 3-second clip and extend it to 8 seconds while maintaining consistency, and when it works it feels like actual magic. When it doesn't work you get someone's face slowly melting into their shoulder, but the success rate is now somewhere around 60% in my testing, which is actually workable if you're willing to generate a few options. And here's where it gets interesting for anyone who already makes videos, the real productivity gain isn't in generating entire clips from scratch. It's in the boring stuff. Removing objects from shots. Changing backgrounds. Upscaling old footage. I had a clip from 2019 that was shot in 1080p with terrible lighting, and I ran it through Topaz Video AI and it looks like something I shot last week with better equipment. That's not hypothetical future technology. That's $20 a month technology that works right now. So what does this mean for you? Let me break down the math because the math is what convinced me this isn't optional anymore. A basic explainer video with motion graphics, stock footage, and professional editing used to cost somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 if you hired it out. Time investment if you did it yourself with traditional tools was probably 15 to 20 hours if you knew what you were doing. I made a comparable video last week in about 4 hours using a combination of AI tools for the stock footage, automated editing assistance, and AI-generated graphics. The quality wasn't identical, I want to be clear about that. A really skilled editor with traditional tools still produces better work. But it was maybe 80% as good at 20% of the time investment. And here's the question nobody's asking, what happens when that equation applies to everything? Because this isn't just about video creators. I talked to a marketing director at a mid-size company last month who told me they cut their video production budget by 60% while actually increasing output. They're not making worse videos. They're making more videos. The bottleneck moved from production to ideation. She said the hard part now isn't making the video, it's figuring out what video to make. Most people stop here, which is a mistake. Because the obvious conclusion is that technical skills are becoming worthless, and that's not quite right. What's actually happening is a skill inversion. The technical fundamentals that used to take years to learn, color grading, motion tracking, compositing, those are getting automated. But the skills that sit above and below that layer are becoming more valuable than ever. Below the technical layer is taste. Knowing what looks good. Understanding why one shot works and another doesn't. Having opinions about pacing and rhythm. AI tools are phenomenal at execution, but they have no taste. They'll generate exactly what you ask for, which means if you ask for something mediocre, you'll get mediocre very efficiently. Above the technical layer is strategy. Understanding what video actually serves your goals. Knowing which videos to make and which to skip. Recognizing when a talking head is better than a fancy production because authenticity matters more than polish for this particular message. The people who are winning right now aren't the ones who figured out the tools first. They're the ones who had strong opinions about quality before the tools arrived. I want to leave you with where this is going because I think the next 6 months matter more than the last 6 months. We're about to see the collapse of the distinction between real and generated footage in most practical contexts. Not in every context, there will still be situations where authentic captured footage matters for legal or emotional or journalistic reasons. But for the vast majority of commercial and creative video work, the question of whether a shot was filmed or generated is going to stop being meaningful. What I'm doing about this personally is treating these tools like a new language. I'm spending about an hour a day just generating things, not for any project, just to build intuition about what works and what doesn't. Because the people who develop fluency now are going to have a massive advantage over people who wait until the tools are so easy that everyone's using them. Right now there's still friction. Right now you still need to think about prompts and understand the quirks and develop workarounds. That friction is your moat. Once it disappears, so does your advantage. The uncomfortable truth is that the barrier to entry for video creation just dropped to nearly zero, which means the barrier to standing out just went up. More people can make videos, which means more videos exist, which means attention is harder to capture, which means quality and originality matter more than they ever have. The tools won't save you if you have nothing to say. But if you do have something to say, you now have no excuse for not saying it. If this helped you think differently about where things are headed, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll see you in the next one.